In the glittering heart of Ravenspire's winter season, where reputation was currency, and a single misstep could end a young woman's future, one sound had the power to silence an entire ballroom. That sound was a ticker, a small silver heart-shaped pendant said to reveal the truth of its wearer. And for Seraphina Hale, that truth was about to destroy her. She stood on the edge of everything she ever wanted, glowing beneath chandeliers that dripped with cold gold light. Her hand rested gently in the palm of Lord Alistair Harrowden, heir to a vast estate, beloved by society, and the man she had foolishly allowed herself to trust. Tonight the whole ballroom watched them with bated breath, certain they were witnessing a fairy tale about to crown itself. They were wrong. They were about to witness a heartbreak so brutal it would stain the season forever. And in that ocean of shifting silk and sharpened whispers, only one man, one ruthless, untouchable duke, would dare to walk toward her when everyone else stepped away. The Grand Meridian Ballroom shimmered beneath a constellation of lanterns, their glass panes carved with tiny stars that scattered glimmers across the marble floor. Musicians wove a soft waltz through the air, its melody sweet and deceiving. Ladies in jewel-toned gowns drifted like petals on water. Gentlemen gleamed in ink-black coats and polished boots. It was the kind of night a debutante was meant to remember forever. Seraphina Hale felt like she was living a dream borrowed from someone kinder, richer, luckier than herself. Her gown, soft ivory satin adorned with delicate moonlit embroidery, was the result of her mother's desperate savings and her own sleepless hours of stitching. She wore it with trembling pride, because tonight she believed everything was finally falling into place. Lord Alistair Harrowden stood before her, handsome in a way that made other ladies sigh behind their fans. His smile was warm, practiced to perfection, and it had been directed at her alone for the past 4 weeks. 4 blissful, dizzying weeks. "You look ethereal tonight, Miss Hale," he murmured, lifting her gloved hand to his lips. "I dare say no star shines quite as brightly." Her heart fluttered, foolish and hopeful. "My lord, you flatter me." "I speak the truth, and soon everyone will know it." He leaned closer, his voice a soft caress. "Wait here, my dear Seraphina. I must speak to my father. Don't move from this spot. I want all to see you waiting for me." Her breath caught. This was it. The moment her widowed mother prayed for. The moment that would save their home, their name, their fragile dignity. She nodded, unable to hide her glowing smile. "I will be right here." Alistair squeezed her fingers one last time before turning toward the cluster of noblemen near the orchestra. Seraphina positioned herself near a marble pillar, every inch the poised young lady she had practiced becoming. She felt eyes on her, admiring, envious, speculative. Her pulse beat a fast, joyful rhythm. And then, her mother's gift, the silver heart-shaped ticker at her throat, clicked once, then again, then shattered into silence. A gasp rippled around her as the tiny device, enchanted to glow when its wearer's feelings were safe and reciprocated, went dark. The symbol of her innocence, broken. Her throat tightened, her hands trembled. Why? She looked toward Alistair. He wasn't speaking with his father anymore. He wasn't even looking in her direction. Instead, Lady Celestine Marwood, a marquis's daughter draped in golden arrogance, stood at his side, fingers curled around his arm as if she'd always belonged there. His father beamed at her. Celestine leaned into Alistair with a laugh as sharp as broken crystal. Seraphina's heart dropped. Then the Marquis of Ravenspire stepped forward, calling the room to silence. And with reverent pride, Alistair's father announced, "Tonight I have the pleasure of declaring the betrothal of my son to Lady Celestine Marwood." The applause was thunderous. The betrayal was absolute. Seraphina felt the world tilt. Her limbs weakened. Her breath caught on a sob she swallowed too late. Her shattered ticker hung dead against her skin. A public proclamation that she had been made a fool of. Laughter stirred around her. Whispers slithered like serpents. Poor girl. How humiliating. She thought he wanted her? With no fortune? How naive. Her vision blurred. Her knees buckled. And just as she crumpled, a shadow cut through the crowd. Silent, controlled, terrifying. The guest fell back like water parting for a ship. He was tall, formidable in midnight black attire that devoured the light. His jaw was carved from stone, his expression unreadable. His reputation whispered one word wherever he passed: ruthless. It was Damien Ravenshade, the Duke of Kinsley, the man who never danced, never smiled, never cared, the man everyone feared, and the only one who moved toward the girl whose ticker had just shattered in front of all. He didn't speak. He didn't ask. He simply removed his dark coat and draped it around Serafina's shoulders, an act so scandalous the entire ballroom froze. His voice, when it finally came, was low and edged with command. "Stand up, Miss Hale. Do not let them feast on your pain." She lifted tear-filled eyes to him, breath trembling. He held out his arm. To take it was to ignite a new scandal. To refuse it was to drown alone. Her hand shook as she set it upon his sleeve. And the ruthless Duke, against every rule of propriety, against every expectation, walked her out of the ballroom, each step tearing through the whispers like a blade. He walked away from the cruelty of the crowd. He walked away from the lies. He walked away from the world that broke her and made sure she did not break alone. The cold night air rushed against Serafina Hale's face as she stepped out of the Grand Meridian ballroom, wrapped in the Duke of Kinsley's dark coat. A coat far too heavy, far too warm, and far too intimate for someone like her to be wearing. But she held it tightly anyway, because it was the only thing keeping her together. Behind her, music still drifted from the ballroom. Gentle, beautiful, cruel. Each note reminded her of how her night was supposed to go, and how brutally it had changed instead. She sank onto the stone bench near the frozen fountain, her fingers pressed against the broken silver ticker hanging from her neck. The tiny heart charm was cracked exactly down the middle, as if mocking the state of her own heart. Why him? Why did he do this? Why tonight? Serafina's breath trembled. Tears fell silently one by one onto the Duke's coat. For a long moment, she thought she was alone, but she wasn't. Footsteps approached, steady, slow, unhurried, the kind of footsteps made by a man who feared nothing. The man who had just pulled her out of a crowded ballroom filled with wolves. The Duke of Kinsley stopped beside her. He didn't sit. He didn't offer empty comfort. He simply stood like a silent wall of protection. "Miss Hale," he said finally, voice low and even, "crying out here alone does nothing but validate their cruelty." She stiffened. His words were sharp, but not unkind. They were reality, spoken without decoration. "I, I didn't mean to cause a scene," she whispered. "You didn't." His gaze held the frozen night. "They did." Silence settled between them again, heavy and full of things she couldn't name. Her voice cracked. "I should have known. Someone like Lord Harrowden would never truly choose me." The Duke's jaw tightened, just barely. "That boy thrives on attention. You were an ornament to him, nothing more." The words hit her like a slap. True, painfully true. "Do not let heartbreak make you foolish," he continued. "You are not lacking." Serafina blinked, stunned. A duke, a feared, impossible duke, had just told her she wasn't lacking. You hardly know me," she said softly. He finally looked at her. His eyes were a storm, dark, observing, seeing far too much. "I know humiliation when I see it," he said. "I know betrayal. And I know the look of someone who was promised something they earned, only to have it stolen." A shiver ran through her. It wasn't cold. For a moment, the nobleman with the unbreakable reputation looked almost human, as if he understood pain more than anyone in that ballroom ever could. Before she could speak, the ballroom doors burst open behind them. Voices spilled out, mocking, drunken, cruel. There she is! The poor little seamstress who thought she'd be a lady. Her ticker broke right in front of everyone. How embarrassing. Did she actually think Alistair loved her? Laughter, high-pitched, heartless. Seraphina's shoulders curled inward. Her chest tightened. Her breath turned shallow. The Duke's expression darkened. He turned slowly, deliberately, toward the group of gossips stumbling down the steps. The moment they saw him, their laughter died in their throats. His presence alone was enough to silence a room. Out here, in the cold, it felt like the shadows obeyed him. If any of you, he said, voice low and deadly calm, speak of Miss Hale again, you will answer me. No one moved. Not even the wind dared to interrupt him. One by one, the gossips backed away, pale and trembling, disappearing into the night like frightened mice escaping a lion. When they were gone, Seraphina stared at the Duke, speechless. He turned back to her. You do not have to fight jackals alone, he said. Her breath caught. No one had ever defended her before. Not like this. Not with this kind of power. But why? She whispered. Why help me at all? Damien Ravenshade, Duke of Kinsley, cold, feared, unreadable, held her gaze for a long moment. And in the moonlight, something flickered across his face. Not warmth, not softness, something deeper, something locked away. Because, he said quietly, I do not enjoy watching innocence be destroyed. He offered his hand. Come. Standing here in the cold solves nothing. Her hand trembled as she placed it in his, and that was the beginning. The moment everything in her life shifted. The moment the ruthless Duke stepped into her story and refused to walk back out. Duke Alistair Ravenshade had faced political rivals, royal accusations, even the lingering grief of losing his wife. But nothing unsettled him like the tremor he heard in his daughter's voice that morning. Selina was not a child who frightened easily. At 9, she carried the strange, quiet wisdom of someone who paid attention to shadows, who read adults better than they read themselves. She sensed lies, tension, the shifting moods of those around her, and she often whispered truths no one else saw coming. But today she trembled as she clutched his cloak. Papa, please, don't go out. Not today. Her voice was soft, but her eyes, those frost blue eyes so much like her mother's, were filled with a fear he did not recognize. Alistair knelt before her. My love, what has frightened you? Selina shook her head quickly, as if speaking would betray something. Instead, she wrapped her arms around him tightly, so tight he felt her heartbeat hammering against his chest. The Duke stroked her hair, confusion tightening in his chest. Tell me what you saw. Selina stiffened. Saw. She hadn't told him about the dreams. Not fully. Only hints. Only fragments. Nightmares that felt like warnings. Visions that felt too real. Her tutor dismissed them as imagination. The palace physician said she was stressed. Her nanny claimed it was a phase. But Alistair knew better. Selina had inherited something from her mother. Something rare. Something feared. Something whispered about in the northern courts. A gift, or a curse, depending on who spoke of it. The gift of sight. Across the room, Lady Evelina drifted quietly, her presence soft and glowing like candlelight. She had arrived only 3 months ago, hired as Selina's governess. Young, gentle, intelligent, and still learning how to step carefully in a ducal household where secrets walk like ghosts. Evelina watched the scene unfold with concern tightening her delicate features. Your Grace, she whispered. Perhaps she had another dream? Selina flinched at the word and Alistair caught it immediately. Selina, he murmured, lifting her chin. Look at me, darling. Her eyes brimmed. I don't want you to get hurt. The Duke's heart tightened painfully. No diplomat, no general, no enemy had ever made him feel fear. But this small trembling child, could bring him to his knees. He lifted her into his arms and held her close. Nothing will happen to me. But the moment the words left his lips, he regretted them, because Selena shook her head violently. You don't understand, she whispered. I saw you falling, and you didn't get back up. Silence crashed through the room. Evelina gasped quietly. Alistair froze. Selena had rarely spoken her visions aloud, but when she did, they came true. Every single time. But the Duke couldn't allow fear to control him, not with negotiations waiting, not with enemies who preyed on weakness. Selena, his voice softened, but steel edged his tone. Visions are shadows, not fate. But Selena looked at him with the kind of certainty no child should ever carry. I know what I saw. Evelina stepped forward now, hands clasped, her voice trembling with compassion. Your Grace, perhaps it is worth reconsidering your outing for today? Alistair turned sharply toward her, a flare of irritation rising. He respected Evelina. Too much, perhaps. Her calm presence soothed him in ways he couldn't explain. Her smile had begun to thaw something in him he thought was forever frozen. But right now, he heard doubt in her voice, and he didn't like it. My duties are not suspended because of dreams, he said coldly. Evelina lowered her eyes, hurt flickering across her face. Selena's small voice broke the tension. Papa, please, if you love me, stay. The Duke felt something deep inside him break. His daughter had never played with emotions, never begged, never pleaded. Whatever she had seen had destroyed her. And yet, duty called, responsibility pressed, enemies watched. Alistair hesitated for the first time in years, and in that hesitation, a shadow moved outside the window. A figure, watching. Selena gasped. Evelina paled, and the Duke rose to his feet, slowly, cautiously, realizing something he had refused to believe. Selena wasn't warning him out of childish fear. Someone was already here. The sound came first. A single, deliberate knock at the massive front doors of Ravenshade Manor. Alistair froze. Selena stiffened in his arms, her small hands clutching his coat. Even Evelina, usually composed, paled as her gaze darted toward the towering entrance. Who? Alistair began, but a chill ran down his spine. His instincts screamed that this was no ordinary visitor. The knock came again, slow, insistent, like the echo of a heartbeat in the dark. He stepped toward the door, every muscle coiled with tension, every sense alert. Stay behind me, he commanded, his voice a low growl. Selena nodded, but her eyes betrayed terror. When the Duke swung the heavy doors open, the chill of the night poured in, carrying with it a figure cloaked in black. The moonlight glinted off polished boots and the edges of a coat that seemed almost impossibly fine. Alistair's eyes narrowed. State your business, he demanded. The figure didn't speak at first. Instead, he simply stepped forward, tall and imposing, radiating authority and quiet menace. The child behind him gasped softly. Selena's grip on Alistair's arm tightened. Finally, the man spoke. Duke Ravenshade, he said, voice smooth but cutting. We need to talk. Alone. Alistair's gaze flicked between Evelina, Selena, and the stranger. Something about this man set his teeth on edge. The air seemed to tighten around him, pressing in with an unseen weight. Alone, he repeated, voice low. Not on my watch. The man's eyes flicked toward Selena. There was recognition there, but no warmth, just a flash of something darker. It's her life that's at risk, he said. Selena's small hands shot up. Papa, listen. He knows. He knows something. Please. Alistair's heart thundered. He had tried to dismiss her visions as childish imagination, tried to ground her in reason, but tonight he could no longer ignore it. Fine, Alistair said, his voice cold but decisive. We speak. But in here, where no one... The stranger cut him off with a small, dark smile. You won't be safe anywhere, Duke. That was enough. Alistair motioned for Evelina to stay with Selena, and led the stranger to the study, the room lined with books and maps, a place of strategy and secrets. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of impending chaos. The stranger stopped just inside the door, hands clasped behind his back. His gaze swept over Alistair with unnerving precision. "You have no idea what's coming," he said, "and by the time you realize it may be too late." Alistair's jaw tightened. "Speak clearly or leave." A flicker of something, triumph, amusement, passed over the stranger's face. "Your daughter's life. Her ticker broke tonight in ways you cannot imagine. Someone is already watching, waiting for the perfect moment. If you leave the house tomorrow, if you even breathe incorrectly, they will strike." Selena gasped from the hallway, and Alistair's blood ran cold. "Ticker broke?" he demanded, fury and fear mixing in equal measure. "Explain." The man's gaze hardened. "Not physically. Her ticker, the thing inside her that binds her, the very pulse of her existence. They know. And if you do not act, she will be gone before sunrise." Alistair's mind raced. Every rational thought screamed at him to stay calm, to reason, to protect. But the dread in his chest clawed upward, refusing to be silenced. "Who are you?" he demanded. "I am someone who knows the truth," the man said, taking a step closer, shadows falling across his face. "And I am the only one who can help you survive the night." Alistair swallowed. His grip on the desk tightened. This was no ordinary threat. No simple game of politics or prestige. Something deadly, unseen had stepped into his world. And tonight, it would not wait. Alistair's study felt impossibly small, the walls closing in as the stranger's words echoed in his mind. Selena's safety. It was no longer a hypothetical concern. It was immediate, concrete, inescapable. "Tell me everything," Alistair demanded, voice low and edged with steel. The man's eyes flickered with a strange intensity. "Her ticker, it has always been special. More than a child's fragile heart, it is. A key. Powerful. Sought after." Alistair's brow furrowed. "Sought after by whom?" "Those who would see her vanish, who would use her pulse to gain influence, wealth, even control over lives they have no right to touch," the man said. "And tonight, you almost walked straight into their trap." Alistair's fists clenched. The weight of responsibility pressed down harder than any duel, any battle, any political intrigue he had ever faced. He was a duke, yes, but no title could protect the one thing he loved most, his daughter. Outside the study, Selena clutched Evelina's hand, her little body shaking as she listened to the muffled voices. She wanted to run, to hide, but she also understood something the adults did not fully grasp. The darkness had already found them. Alistair turned sharply to the stranger. "Then tell me how to protect her. Every step, every move I must make." The stranger's lips tightened. "You cannot do this alone. You will need allies, but they may be hiding in plain sight. Trust no one blindly." Alistair's mind raced. Every ally he had ever relied upon, trusted advisors, neighboring lords, could be a spy, a threat, a traitor. The world he had known, the carefully constructed life of power and influence, now felt like quicksand beneath his feet. And yet, there was one person he could rely on, one person who had already proven herself capable of courage beyond measure. His daughter. He turned to Selena as Evelina led her into the study. The child's eyes were wide but determined, a strange mix of fear and bravery that stole the Duke's breath. "You understand, don't you?" he asked gently. Selena nodded. "I saw it, Papa. I knew you'd need help. We have to stop them before it's too late." Alistair's heart ached at the maturity in her voice, the burden she was forced to bear at such a young age. "We will. Together." The stranger stepped closer, producing a small, intricately carved box. "Inside this," he said, "is a device that can protect her ticker from being exploited. But it must be activated before midnight. Fail, and the consequences will be irreversible." Alistair took the box, feeling its cold weight in his hands. The sense of urgency was suffocating, every second ticking louder than the last. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the ballroom side of the manor. The servant screamed, footsteps pounding the corridors. "They're here," the stranger said, his voice grave. "And they're not just watching, they're moving." Alistair's gaze met Selena's. "Stay close," he instructed, his tone brooking no argument. "No matter what happens, you follow me. Understood?" Selena nodded, clutching his hand. The Duke took a deep breath, his pulse hammering. Every fiber of his being screamed to protect, to strike, to command. But he had to stay calm, precise, deliberate. One misstep, and Selena's life would be lost. Outside, shadows moved like smoke through the corridors. Whispers reached the study, cold and threatening. Alistair realized the ballroom, once a place of celebration, had become a hunting ground. Every ornate chandelier, every gilded mirror, every opulent corner could hide a danger. He turned to the stranger. "We move now," he said. The man inclined his head. "Be ready for anything. And Duke, even those closest to you may not be who they appear to be." Alistair's stomach twisted, but he did not hesitate. He took Selena's hand firmly, Evelina closed, and stepped into the corridor. The cold night air of the manor whispering threats against them. The chase had begun. And there was no turning back. The corridors of Ravenshade Manor twisted like a maze, shadows crawling along the walls as Alistair led Selena and Evelina toward the hidden chamber the stranger had mentioned. Every step was measured, silent, yet thrumming with tension. Somewhere beyond the thick oak doors, danger waited, an invisible predator closing in. Alistair's mind raced. Who had discovered Selena's secret? Who knew of her ticker and its strange, rare power? The questions gnawed at him, each one darker than the last. But the stranger, whose name he had yet to learn, walked steadily, unflinching, like a guide through chaos. At last they reached a heavy door, carved with intricate symbols that glinted faintly in the moonlight. The stranger turned to Alistair. "Inside this room," he said, "you will find answers. Answers about her and the enemy who hunts her. But beware, the truth may be more dangerous than the threat itself." Alistair hesitated. The weight of responsibility pressed down harder than any blade. Yet he could not falter, not when Selena's life hung in the balance. He nodded, and the stranger opened the door. The chamber was small, dimly lit by flickering candles, but it radiated power. In the center rested a crystal pedestal, upon which lay a bundle wrapped in velvet. Alistair's breath caught. The stranger stepped closer. "This belonged to her mother." Selena's eyes widened. "Mama's," she whispered, trembling. "Yes," the stranger said, his voice softening ever so slightly. "Before she passed, your mother discovered the secret of your ticker. She hid it here, knowing one day it would be needed to protect you. But there is more." Duke Ravenshade. Alistair's gaze sharpened. "More?" The stranger nodded. "The people who seek her are not merely after wealth or influence. They are after power that transcends the ordinary, a power tied to bloodlines, a power that your daughter inherited. Her ticker is a key to something much larger than you imagined." Selena gasped, clutching Alistair's hand. I didn't know." Alistair's jaw tightened. Anger and fear collided within him. He had underestimated the stakes. What had begun as a warning from his daughter had now become a revelation of profound danger, reaching far beyond the walls of Ravenshade Manor. The stranger lifted the velvet bundle, revealing a small, crystalline device glowing faintly with an inner light. "This is her protection. It must be activated before the enemy's agents can reach her. If it fails—" His words trailed off, but the weight of unspoken death hung heavy in the air. Alistair swallowed. "How do I activate it?" The stranger handed him the device. "Her blood, her pulse, and your will. Only the bond between parent and child can trigger it. You must focus on protecting her, and she must believe in your power to shield her." Selena looked up at her father, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. Papa, we can do this together. Alistair felt something stir deep within him, a connection, a spark of hope, the unshakable determination to save his child. He tightened his grip on her hand. But then the chamber door shuddered violently. A shadow fell across the flickering candlelight, and the stranger's face hardened. "They're here," he said, "and they know where she is." Alistair felt a surge of adrenaline. The revelation was clear now. It wasn't just a threat. It was an attack with precision, and the enemy had been watching them long before the Duke had even realized the danger. Selena's voice, small but steady, cut through his thoughts. "Papa, I'm ready. Are you ready?" Alistair looked down at her, the weight of love and fear colliding in his chest. "Always," and he said, "always, my darling." At that moment, the Duke understood. The game had changed. The enemy's reach was long, their motives hidden. But he also realized something even more crucial. He would not face this alone. Together, they held the key to survival if they could only activate it in time. And with the enemy already at their doors, time had become the most dangerous adversary of all. Alistair's senses screamed as a gust of cold air swept through the chamber, extinguishing several candles and casting the room into a wavering darkness. He tightened his grip on Selena, shielding her with his body. Evelina clutched the child's hand, her face pale, lips trembling. "They're inside," the stranger whispered, eyes darting to every shadowed corner. "They won't give you time." Alistair's heart pounded. Every step outside the study was fraught with peril, yet he had no choice. He had to move, to act, or risk losing Selena forever. From the corridor came the faintest rustle, the sound of fabric brushing against the cold stone floor. A whisper of movement, just beyond sight. "They're trying to separate you," the stranger warned. "Stay together." Selena's small hand pressed into his. "Papa, I'm scared." Alistair swallowed the fear rising like venom. "So am I," he admitted, voice low, almost a whisper. "But we cannot falter. Not now. Not ever." They crept through the manor's twisting corridors, every shadow a potential threat. The distant echo of footsteps, too precise, too deliberate, haunted them. Alistair's mind raced, calculating, anticipating every possible attack, every betrayal. A sudden crash made them spin. A masked figure lurched from the shadows, lunging at Selena. Alistair reacted instinctively, swinging his arm to intercept the blow. The stranger shouted a warning, but it was too late. The figure's blade grazed Alistair's shoulder, drawing a thin line of blood. Pain flared, but he ignored it. "Go! Keep moving!" he barked. Selena stumbled but was caught by Evelina's steady hands. Alistair spun, striking at the attacker with precise force, his training as a Duke's son now life-saving. The figure recoiled, then vanished into the darkness like smoke. Alistair's chest heaved. Sweat and blood mixed on his skin. Every nerve in his body screamed with exhaustion and dread. The corridor stretched endlessly, a labyrinth of threats. He realized with a cold certainty that the enemy knew the manor better than he did. Then a sound worse than any attack, a soft, menacing laughter, echoing off the stone walls. "They've been here before," the stranger said, his voice tight. "They know your every move, your every weakness." Alistair felt the weight of despair settle over him. For the first time, he questioned whether they would survive. Selena's life was literally in the hands of fate, and he felt the cruel bite of helplessness. The crystalline device hummed faintly in his coat pocket, a reminder of hope, but he could feel time slipping through their fingers like sand. Every second brought the enemy closer. Selena's small voice broke the tension. "Papa, don't leave me." Alistair's chest tightened. He pressed his lips to her forehead, whispering fiercely, "Never. I will not leave you. I swear it. Not for anything in this world." But even as he spoke, a sense of isolation settled around him. The corridors stretched endlessly, allies and servants nowhere to be found. Every shadow seemed alive, every silence threatening. And then from the far end of the hall, A piercing cry rang out. Selena's voice, but distorted, filled with fear. Alistair's stomach dropped. He sprinted forward, heart hammering, only to find the corridor empty. The cry had vanished. The Duke's resolve wavered for the first time. Doubt crept in. What if he had been too slow? What if the enemy had already claimed Selena? A hand touched his shoulder, sharp, commanding. The stranger's voice cut through the darkness, firm and steady. This is the moment. You cannot falter, Duke. All seems lost. But the truth is, you are stronger than you know. Alistair swallowed hard, his fear colliding with a renewed sense of purpose. The darkest hour was here. Shadows pressed in from every side. But he would not surrender. Selena's life and the future they had yet to claim depended on his courage, and he would fight. Alistair's boots echoed through the stone corridor as he pressed forward, Selena's small hand clutching his with desperate determination. The fear that had nearly paralyzed him moments ago was replaced by a fierce clarity. One choice, one path, one purpose. Protect his daughter at all costs. The stranger moved beside him, a silent shadow guiding them through hidden passageways known only to a select few. Every turn, every step, brought them closer to the heart of the manor, and with it, the key to activating the device that could save Selena. Almost there, the stranger murmured, nodding toward a heavy door concealed behind a tapestry. But beware. They are aware of your movements. They will not let you reach it unchallenged. Alistair's jaw tightened. Then we challenge them. The door swung open into a small, circular chamber bathed in the soft glow of candlelight. In the center rested the crystalline device, faintly pulsing with a gentle, ethereal light. Selena's eyes widened, reflecting both awe and fear. You see it, Selena? Alistair asked gently. Do you understand what it can do? She nodded, her small fingers trembling as she reached out. I think so, Papa, but will it work? Alistair knelt beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. It will. We just have to believe and stay together. No sooner had the words left his lips than a chilling laugh echoed from the corridor. The masked figures were here, faster than expected. They've found us, the stranger warned. Activate it now. Alistair took a deep breath, focusing on Selena. Together, he said. She nodded. They placed their hands on the device, feeling its strange warmth begin to pulse in rhythm with Selena's ticker. A wave of light burst from the crystal, filling the room with a protective aura. Alistair felt the energy wrap around them, shielding them, fortifying Selena's heartbeat against the unseen forces outside. The chamber door rattled violently. Shadows pressed against it, hands pounding, voices shouting orders. But the device held. The light shimmered like a living force, an invisible shield no blade or trick could penetrate. Alistair's heart raced, but for the first time that night, hope surged through him. He looked down at Selena, who met his gaze with a courage that mirrored his own. You did it, he whispered. You've done it. But the stranger's voice cut sharply through the relief. It is not over. The device only protects her ticker. It does not stop them from coming after her in other ways. You must leave now. Alistair's mind whirled. The manor, the shadows, the masked figures, they would not relent. But he had a plan, a new clarity. They would escape, regroup, and fight back smarter, stronger. He lifted Selena into his arms, feeling the weight of her trust and of the bond between them. Hold on tight, my darling. We are not done yet, not by a long shot. Evelina followed closely, her eyes wide but steady. Together, the three of them moved through the secret passageways, guided by the stranger's knowledge and Alistair's resolve. As they emerged into the moonlit gardens, the cool night air a balm against their fear, Alistair paused. For the first time since the night began, he saw the scope of the danger and the opportunity it presented. The enemy may have believed they had the upper hand. They may have thought the Duke of Ravenshade and his daughter could be crushed under pressure and fear. But they had underestimated the strength of a father's love. and the courage of a child whose heartbeat was more than mere rhythm. It was power. Alistair looked down at Selena. "We have survived the darkest hour," he said, voice steady. "And now, we fight back." For the first time, he felt the shift. The fear and despair that had threatened to consume them were replaced by resolve and determination. They were no longer fleeing. They were preparing to reclaim control of their lives, their safety, and their destiny. And somewhere deep within the shadows of the manor, he knew the enemy realized they had awakened something far more dangerous than fear itself, a family who refused to be broken. The night had deepened into a velvet black, the moonlight barely cutting through the dense fog that curled around Ravenshade Manor. Alistair's heart pounded as he led Selena and Evelina through the gardens, every shadow a potential enemy. Yet the fear that had gripped him in the corridors now burned as a determination. They would not falter, not now, not ever. The masked figures emerged from the mist, surrounding them in a deadly ring. Steel glinted in the moonlight, their movements precise and predatory. Alistair felt a surge of adrenaline. His daughter's life depended on him. He raised his hand, the crystalline device in his grasp, its faint pulse synchronizing with Selena's heartbeat. "You won't take her," he growled, stepping in front of Selena. The leader of the masked figures stepped forward, a cruel smile visible even behind the shadow of his mask. "The child belongs to forces greater than your will, Duke. Hand her over, and perhaps we show mercy." Alistair's jaw tightened. "Mercy?" he spat, voice echoing across the garden. "You've never understood what family means." With a nod to Selena, he activated the device fully. A brilliant light exploded outward, a shield of energy that repelled the attackers, forcing them back with a crackling force that hummed in the air. Alistair felt power surge through his veins, a connection with his daughter that strengthened the barrier with every heartbeat. Selena's voice rang out, clear and strong. "Papa, together!" Alistair and Selena joined hands, and the crystal blazed, sending a wave of radiant energy over the masked figures. Screams of frustration and pain echoed as they stumbled, their assault thwarted by the bond between father and daughter. The light pulsed, protective, unyielding, a force no darkness could break. The leader lunged once more, but Alistair was faster. He intercepted the attack, disarming the man with a swift motion that sent the steel clattering to the stone. Evelina stepped forward, pulling off the leader's mask, revealing a young man whose eyes flickered with fear and recognition. "You underestimate them," Alistair said, voice low and lethal. "You cannot touch what you do not understand." One by one, the masked figures fled, broken and defeated, the garden now silent except for the pulse of the crystal and the ragged breaths of the three raven shades. Alistair's shoulders sagged with relief, but he kept his eyes vigilant. Selena's small fingers gripped his hand. "We did it, Papa. We really did it." Alistair knelt before her, his chest heaving. "Yes, my darling, and we will keep doing it. Together always." The stranger who had guided them appeared from the shadows, his expression unreadable. "The threat is gone, for now," he said, "but she is stronger than they imagined, and so are you." Alistair nodded, feeling a sense of triumph that had nothing to do with victory over enemies, and everything to do with the bond forged in fire and fear. He lifted Selena into his arms, holding her close. The crystal, now dimming, had done its work. It had revealed not only the enemy's reach, but the depth of the Duke's love, the unbreakable courage of a child, and the power of trust and unity. "Your future is yours, Selena," Alistair whispered. "Nothing and no one can take that from you." The night air felt warm now, as though the darkness itself had been vanquished by the light of their connection. For the first time since the terror began, Alistair allowed himself to breathe, to feel hope instead of fear. The enemy had underestimated them, and in doing so, had revealed a truth more powerful than any weapon. Love, courage, and unwavering faith in one another could overcome even the most insurmountable odds. Alistair glanced at the horizon, where the first hints of dawn were brushing the sky with gold. The battle was over, the danger receding like the tide. And in the quiet aftermath, Ravenshade Manor felt alive with possibility. They had survived the darkest night. They had faced death and fear, yet emerged unbroken. And as father and daughter walked toward the manor, the future, once uncertain, stretched before them, radiant with promise. The morning sun streamed over Ravenshade Manor, turning the dew on the gardens into 1,000 tiny diamonds. Birds chirped as if celebrating, the world awakening around a family who had faced the night and claimed their peace. Alistair held Selina's small hand as they walked down the steps, the weight of the previous night's terror replaced with calm relief. Evelina walked beside them, eyes bright with quiet pride. Selina glanced up at her father. "Papa, we're safe now?" Alistair knelt to meet her gaze, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes, my brave girl. You are safe, and we will always protect each other." Her small face broke into a victorious smile, one that mirrored the unspoken promise between them. No darkness, no enemy, could sever their bond. Inside the manor, Alistair stood before the crystal, now inert but still gleaming faintly in the morning light. It had done more than protect Selina. It had revealed what he had known in his heart all along, that love, courage, and trust could overcome even the most ruthless adversaries. Evelina placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You kept her safe. You both kept hope alive." Alistair nodded, his voice soft but filled with conviction. "We did it together. That is what matters." For the first time in years, Ravenshade Manor felt warm, alive, filled with laughter and light instead of fear and shadows. Alistair watched Selina chase the morning light across the garden, her laughter ringing like a melody he had feared he'd never hear. The Duke felt an unfamiliar warmth swell within him, a sense of fulfillment, not from power or wealth, but from the life he had fought so desperately to preserve. The realization hit him. Victory was not in defeating enemies, but in protecting the ones who mattered most. Later that day, as they sat by the manor's grand windows, sunlight spilling across the polished floors, Alistair reflected on the events of the night before. Every moment of fear, every shadowed corridor had led them here. Stronger, closer, unbroken. Selina climbed onto his lap, her small arms wrapping around his neck. "Papa, will we always be this brave?" she asked. Alistair smiled, holding her tightly. "We will, because we have each other. Always." And in that embrace, he understood something he had never known before. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward despite it. Love was not measured in words or wealth, but in actions, in sacrifice, in unwavering presence when it mattered most. The manor was quiet, save for the soft sounds of their lives returning to normal. Outside, the gardens bloomed, the sun gilding every leaf and petal. Alistair watched Selina run freely, Evelina following close behind, and he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. No enemy, no darkness could ever sever the bond they shared. The Duke of Ravenshade, once feared and isolated, had discovered something far more powerful than his reputation: the unbreakable strength of family and love. As the day stretched into afternoon, Alistair allowed himself a moment of contentment, a rare stillness in a life usually defined by vigilance. Selina ran back to him, breathless and radiant. "Papa, look at the flowers. They're all glowing in the sun." Alistair laughed, lifting her into his arms. "Yes, my darling, and so is our future." Together they stood on the terrace, the morning breeze lifting hair and spirits alike. The horrors of the night were behind them, replaced by hope, love, and the promise of new beginnings. And in the quiet triumph of survival and reunion, Alistair knew this truth above all else. They were stronger than any darkness, braver than any fear, and bound together by a love that would endure forever. Final reflection. Question: what would you risk everything to protect, and who gives you the courage to face your fears? Comment below. Share your story of love, courage, or resilience.